of the 1,135 detained demonstrators on this hunger protest. By the way, you can join us live on YouTube. We are at Voice of the People Abuja. Join us live on YouTube. Voice of the People Abuja is our YouTube channel. You can join us right about now. Of course, you can always be a part of the conversation at any point in time. You can call 0808 312 8618. 0808 312 8618 is the number to call to also be a part of our conversation. It's also our WhatsApp number as well, so do well to text that. However, we have the police beginning trial of 1,135 detained demonstrators. Several state police commands in the northern part of the country have begun the prosecution of arrested protesters during the 10-day End Bad Governance in Nigeria nationwide protest. While the protests were relatively peaceful in the south, it turned violent in the north, with several lives lost, property worth billions of naira destroyed, leading to the declaration of the curfew in no fewer than 5 northern states. The protests, which held from August 1st to 10th, was against the rising cost of living, which has been fueled by fuel subsidy removal, surge in inflation at a 28-year high, and government economic policies that pushed the naira to a record low against the dollar. At least 17 persons were reportedly killed in Abuja, Kano, Niger, Borno, Kaduna, and Jigawa states, and several others injured on the opening day of the protest, with Amnesty International condemning the use of deadly action against the protesters and accusing the security operatives of killing at least 21 protesters. Now, findings by newsmen show that at least 1,135 arrested persons during this protest would be charged to court beginning from today. On Sunday, the Yobe State Command said it would arraign 108 persons who were arrested for various offenses, including violating the imposed curfew during the hunger protest. DSP Dungus Abdukarim, Police Public Relations Officer Yobe Command, stated that the apprehended suspects would be brought before the court to face charges related to their alleged involvements in the protests. In Kano, a total of 632 persons were arrested for alleged destruction of the property during the anti-hunger protest in the state and were remanded by a Kano State Mobile Court since last Tuesday, and they will appear in court August 19th, sometime this week. If you recall, in Kano State, several public and private facilities were destroyed, vandalized. Kano State Printing Press, the NCC, the Kano State High Court, and a number of vehicles parked within the premises were vandalized and looted as well. There were supermarkets in the city that were also reported losses of over 5 billion naira due to the hoodlums. The arrested persons were charged with criminal conspiracy, theft, unlawful assembly, inciting disturbance, trespass, and mischief by fire. In a couple of other states as well, number of suspects have also been arrested, and they will be remanded in court sometime last week, right into this week. We'll be watching and seeing how that plays out as well. Meanwhile, some top officials of the National Hajj Commission of Nigeria have been arrested by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission over alleged mismanagement or diversion of the 90 billion naira released by the federal government to subsidize the 2024 Hajj pilgrimage to Saudi Arabia. If you recall, there were calls for help by the Nigerians who went on the Hajj experience. Well, we had a lot of complaints. I mean, there were videos showing the soups that were eaten, the foods that were eaten by Nigerians who went through the commission. I mean, there was a lot of complaint for that particular trip, said to be worth 90 billion naira. Well, we'll watch and see how this particular case goes on. Several state police commands in the northern we've talked about that. A 41-year-old woman, Adenike Salami, has been arraigned from the Ebute Magistrate Court in Lagos State on charges of forging an airline ticket and fraudulently obtaining $2,500. She appeared before magistrates. Waliu Salami is facing 3 counts of conspiracy, fraud, and forgery brought against her by the police. That's a piece of Metro News right there. Meanwhile, we have the NYSC saying that there's been no directive to pay corps members 70,000 naira minimum wage yet. Late July, President Bola Tinubu signed the minimum wage bill into law, increasing the national minimum wage from 35,000 naira to 70,000 naira. The management of the NYSC has denounced what it described as misleading information circulating in the media regarding the payment of 70,000 naira minimum wage to corps members. A statement signed by the Director, Information and Public Relations of the Corps, Eddie Megwa, said corps members, parents and members of the public should note that no directive has been received from the relevant sector of government responsible to raise the allowance of corps members. The statement explained that corps members already know the approved channel and the mode of communication in the scheme and should therefore ignore misleading information accordingly. Well, we'll watch and see how that plays out as well. Meanwhile, the former president Olusegun Obasanjo has called on the National Assembly and has slammed them, saying it is uncharitable to claim that all right, this is in response, rather, to what Obasanjo says. The Senate is tackling Obasanjo. It says it's uncharitable to claim that the National Assembly fixes their own salaries. All right, I'm trying to find... Okay, so the Red Chamber, the Senate on Sunday, tackled former President Olusegun Obasanjo over his comment that lawmakers in both chambers of the National Assembly fix their own salaries. Well, in a statement, the Senate spokesman Yemi Adaramodu challenged anyone with credible evidence to present contrary facts, describing any suggestion that the National Assembly fixes its own salaries as uncharitable and satanic. Adaramodu said the Red Chamber only receives the salary allocated to it by the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, in line with the Constitution. The lawmaker, who represents Ekiti South Senatorial District in the 10th National Assembly, also emphasized that no senator has received any financial patronage from the presidency. He clarified that the constituency projects, often linked to the legislature, are merely suggested and nominated by senators following practices common in other democracies worldwide. Meanwhile, we have a response to that. We'll be checking out in Voices in the News in just a bit. Poland has come out to say that their nationals didn't fly the Russian flags in Kano. Remember, over the course of the weekend, on Friday or Thursday, we had the federal government packing up some Polish nationals, getting them under custody, and some investigations were had where the federal government said that these Polish nationals were flying the flag and also warned any international forces from affecting or working within the Nigerian space, talking about the fact that peace and unity is our core direction right about now. Well, we'll check that out in just a moment. The Polish foreign minister says the 7 nationals arrested by Nigeria's secret police in Kano were 6 students and a teacher. The Polish deputy minister of foreign affairs told private radio station that 6 students and the teacher were in the wrong place at the wrong time. The 7 Polish nationals were accused of playing a suspicious role in the protest against government policies and economic hardship. The Department of State Services said upon their arrest on Thursday, the Polish minister, however, said they were students and a teacher. We'll watch and see just how that particular investigation goes on. Okay, looking at the voices in the news, we have some Niger Delta youths raising alarm over a plot to impeach Senate President Godswill Akpabio. Let's take a listen.
Fellow compatriots, gentlemen of the press, a press statement by Niger Delta Ethnic Nationalities Youth Leaders Forum held here today, being 10th of August 2024. A time comes in life when silence is betrayal. And today, we are at that time where we must speak with respect to leadership in our country, Nigeria. This has become most necessary in view of the targeted personal attacks on political leaders from the southern Nigerian extraction. The truth of these words is beyond doubt, but the calling to speak sometimes is the most difficult one. Even when we are pressed by the demands of our inner truth, we must speak because it's the right thing to do. As ethnic youth leaders from the Niger Delta part of our country, Nigeria, we are dismayed by the organized and repeated attacks by some sections of this country whenever a Southern is in power, such as the evil plots against ex-President Goodluck Jonathan, former Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Walter Onoge, former Director General of the Department of State Security, DSS, Dr. Matthew Seyefa, has currently witnessed targets and attacks on the current Minister of the FCT, Chief Barrister Nyesom Ezenwo-Wike, and several others, too many to mention. Suffice it to say that under a southern leadership of the Nigerian Senate in the past, more especially when the Senate leadership was zoned to the southern eastern part of our country, 5 different Senate presidents emerged to state unequivocally that any attempt to attack, to malign, or impeach the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, will be met with serious consequences. Did I speak your mind?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
We are aware that some mischief makers are trying to make a meal of an informal remark made by the Senate President while he was addressing his kinsmen in Port Harcourt during this recent national protest, wherein he advised his children, his younger ones, to sit at home and enjoy themselves rather than engage in violent protests and destroy a country that is desperately needing survival and growth. This remark that was made on a lighter note has been quoted out of context, To speak the truth, this is rather preposterous. If a man who is like a father to his own children advises the children to stay at home instead of engaging in violent protests against our own nation, is that any crime about that?
No.
This is rather preposterous. Our position today is not in any way an attempt to deny the harsh economic reality currently.
All right. He talked about an impeachment move for the the Senate president. And let me just use an example. Let's assume the number of voters registered to vote in a constituency is about 100,000. Firstly, at least 50,001 voters, that is a bit more than half, must sign a petition and deliver it to INEC chairman. Secondly, the signatures must be verified to ensure that none is fake and all signatories are on the electoral register. Thirdly, within 90 days of receiving the petition, INEC will conduct a referendum in the numbers and the members' constituency rather. If a simple majority vote is in favor of removing the representative, then the INEC chairman will issue a certificate of recall to the presiding officer of either of the national houses of assembly to remove the representative. A by-election is then held to elect the next representative, but the previous representative can still run if his or her party supports and nominates them for the elections. Now, this process applies equally to the Senate and the houses of representatives. Now, looking at this process of impeaching a serving senator, how then are we making this a tribe issue or a section issue where you're coming from? It's becoming, we're shifting the focus from this conversation from what it is. Has he been serving his people properly? That is the question here. If he has been representing his people properly, then there will be no calls for impeachment, whether we like it or not. If you're doing well and your constituency people, members love you, then there will be no calls for your impeachment. And then he holds two offices. Now, let's not forget he's the number three man in the country at this point in time. And that means he's not just representing his federal constituency, he's also representing the Nigerian people. The collective voice of the Nigerian people. That's what he's heading at that point. And because of that, it's a sensitive position. So if he's not serving Nigerians as a whole properly, then there will be calls for impeachment. But ultimately, for that to occur, then 50,001 voters, let's say in a constituency with registered voters 100,000 people, well, he must have 50,001, which is more than half. They must sign a petition and deliver it to INEC. INEC will then verify, and then they conduct a referendum and all that, right? So that's the process of impeachment at this point in time. However, another conversation was had concerning the National Assembly, and this was by Obasanjo to the National Assembly members. Let's take a listen. He says, "You fix your salaries, allowances yourself. It is immoral."
Look at, in your own case, with all due respect, you are not supposed to fix your salary or your allowances. It's supposed to be done by the revenue mobilization and what? Okay. But you decide what you pay yourself, the allowances that you give yourself, newspaper allowances, pant allowances, sheeting allowances. You give yourself all sorts of things, with all due respect. And you know it's not right. It is not right. It is not right for me to be the one to determine what I pay myself. It's immoral. And then you are doing it. The Senate is doing it. And you beat your chest. And in some cases, even the executive give you what you are not entitled to. You all got 200 million naira.
The president also made a very, very revealing conversation concerning Shell and the crude oil situation in the country. We'll be touchlighting that at the other side of the hour from the...
Those boys and girls that have tried to go over the Sahara and go over the Mediterranean, they had 3 hurdles to cross: the Sahara, the treatment in the Mediterranean country on this side, whether it's Algeria or Libya or wherever, they go through hell. Then the Mediterranean.
Well, that was the former president's speech yesterday. We'll get more details on that. So we'll be looking at that with Mr. Rufai Oseni in just a moment. Meanwhile, you can join us on YouTube, Voice of the People Abuja. You can join us live on YouTube. Leave a comment or two on our YouTube page. Don't forget to subscribe as well. It is at Voice of the People Abuja. Voice of the People Abuja. You can still call us on our phone line 0808 312 8618 0808 312 8618. About 2 days ago, protesters' march were escorted by security forces during a morning vigil in Ikeja, Lagos on August 9th. Well, if you see that video, you could see that they were escorted by security forces peacefully. And then some of the questions have been, this is you're escorting Nigerians during a morning vigil in Ikeja. I mean, people have died obviously, and so you're escorting them to the morning vigil. And in this particular case, a lot of people have been asking, how come it is peaceful now that it's a morning it's a protesters march, right? How come it's a morning march and it is peaceful? How come this wasn't allowed to happen during the protest that was originally peaceful? That's what a lot of people have been asking. Well, we'll watch and see how some of this plays out. Well, some of the organizers have said they will be taking the federal government to court to see how that plays out based on human rights that were abused during that particular protest, or the alleged abuse of human rights at that particular protest. We'll watch and see how that plays out. Meanwhile, cuts off Kano Maiduguri Highway. The heavy downpour has severely damaged the highway connecting Kano to Maiduguri, particularly between the Malori and Guskuri villages in the Katagom local government area of Bauchi State. I mean, if you watch that particular video, if you're on our live, you would see that that particular road has been completely wiped. NEMA gets to that particular place and gets those people rescued on not a flat road. Why would they put a flat road in that? Why would they put a flat road in that? I mean, if you look at the direction of the water, you would see that this is heavy. This is heavy. It should have been a bridge and not how that plays out. Meanwhile, our hearts and our prayers are with those in the area, and hopefully no lives were lost during that particular downpour of water. And meanwhile, the Oyo State have said they did not receive. He says that they did not receive any money. In Kano State, the Kano government has filed fresh charge against Ganduje and 3 others, alleged 57.4 billion naira fraud. The Kano government has filed a fresh fraud charge against the immediate past governor, his commissioner for local government, Murtala Garo, and 2 others. The charges, meticulously documented and submitted by the Kano State Ministry of Justice, accuse the defendants of conspiring to divert over 57.43 billion meant for the 44 local government areas. Well, yes, we need to connect with Rufai Oseni right about now. Good morning.
Bless you. Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you so much. Good morning, Mr. Rufai. It's a Monday. How was your weekend?
Yeah, well, bless God. It was all right. Bless God.
All right. First of all, the Olympics ended and we did not have a medal.
Before God, I mean, what were you expecting? When you don't prepare properly, you have problems. When you don't have an list, please, to be able to ensure that we do what is necessary to win medals. And it's not about the minister coming out and saying then that the president gave us all we needed and we did this and that. No. That's all hogwash. What are the results? Or anything.
Well, it's really interesting to watch because we did see a lot of Nigerians who played for other teams in different Olympic games. We saw them cruise and coast to either a silver medal or a gold medal. We saw that in shot put. We saw that in Germany as well. We saw that in different cases. I don't know why Nigerians who came through Nigeria didn't perform to expectations. We'll watch and see how all this plays out.
You know why? Because those other countries pay attention. We don't pay attention to things. The case of Annette is particularly very instructive. 4 years ago, Annette couldn't even compete because of Nigeria happened to her, and she was representing Nigeria in Tokyo. She went to America. She's a silver medalist. So it's just sad.
All right, we'll watch and see how all that plays out because there were a lot of conversations about mismanagement of funds and all that. Maybe when Nigerians come back, then we can have this conversation. Maybe more investigations will be had.
Yes, there constantly be a lot of problems about it. It's not today. 36 years ago, our Seoul Olympics was one of the worst. Our outing at Seoul Olympics. A lot of shenanigans happened. Mismanagement happened. The media made a lot of noise about Seoul Olympics. Somebody would have thought, oh, Nigeria, it will never repeat itself again. Today we are back to the Seoul Olympic moments. So these people have just come to a point that media will just make noise. They will never take us seriously. And they'll still do the rubbish they have to do. But it can't continue. So that's why we have to keep speaking.
All right. We need to keep speaking. Someone who didn't stop speaking over the course of the weekend is Obasanjo. He talked about the National Assembly fixing their own salaries and how immoral that is. He also talked about the fact that we need a rearmament in terms of how we do things, a reorientation in terms of the love that we have for ourselves as Nigerians, saying everyone is Nigerian. One shouldn't be treated differently because they're from a different part of the country or whatnot. What's your take on some of the conversations that we had with the former president Olusegun Obasanjo?
I think the most important thing about those conversations is the fact that he has also told the National Assembly that you people too are doing the most. You people too are doing the most. You people too are doing the most. We need you people to stop all of your own excesses. We need you people to stop your own excesses. And I think that should be an instructive message for the National Assembly. Because they are not doing...
Hello. All right, we'll try to re-establish contact. The network right there playing a fast one, but all right.
If they are doing well, we'll tell them they've done well. They're not doing well.
Mr. Rufai, some youths came out to talk about a plot to impeach the Senate president. The Niger Delta youth, they raised an alarm over a plot to impeach the Senate president, Godswill Akpabio, and it was becoming a thing of tribe or region. Was talking about the fact that when it comes to people that are ruling from South Nigeria, you see some people from other parts of the country trying to frustrate that person's government. He gave some examples talking about a good luck.
Let's not tribalize it. There's always one plot here or the other to remove Senate president one time or the other in Nigeria history. Let's not tribalize it. The most important thing is how can these people run effectively? That's the most important thing. How can they run a country and a nation effectively? How can they do the things that are beneficial to people? So when we try to link it, you just try to tribe and all that, just try to whip up on new sentiments.
Because the question is, if you are doing well, if someone is doing well, will there be cause for someone's impeachment? Whether from whatever divide, there won't be, right?
But it's not. The impeachment in the Senate is about interest. If your interests are not aligned with the key stakeholders, then they will impeach you. Will you say Chuba Akadibu was not doing there? Wasn't he impeached? So let's not even bring that one. It's just, you see, the politicians in the end is all about their interests and their interest only. The day we know that, that's the day our life becomes a whole lot better. It's about their interest and their interest only. They don't really care too much about you and I.
All right. Well, moving on to another headline this morning, talking about the NYSC saying that the federal government hasn't yet given them a directive to pay core members 70,000 naira minimum wage. They were talking about the fact that the president had signed a minimum wage bill into law, and of course, that included the core members. And there was news over the course of the weekend that Nigerians and the NYSC core, there's been directive to pay them that 70,000 naira.
What the thing is, whatever they say, most importantly is at least they should ensure that they must be paid. And they must be paid in consonance with the new minimum wage arrangement. That's just it. Let's stop going back and forth. That's just it.
All right. Mr. Rufai, is there any more headline you'd like to touch upon before we wrap up?
Oh, yeah, there are many headlines. Number one, I would like to touch about what is happening with the Dangote refinery. Over the weekend, there was a lot of back and forth. The question is, why is it so difficult for them to make resources available for the Dangote refinery to be able to have the food it needs to crack? So why are we having all of these back and forth fights?
Mr. Rufai,
go ahead.
Initially, the directive was for the federal government and the NNPC to deliver a certain number of barrels to the Dangote refinery. So what exactly is happening from there?
The problem is they're not giving them the barrels. If they're giving them, Dangote will not be shouting every day. And you can see a lot of public law. You can see the investigative work that David Oyedeyi revealed, that some people were trying to pay him to be able to smell the Dangote refinery. They said they were international bodies. So that's just it. So the question is, are we going to allow all of these special interests continue to make Africa suffer again? And I think that's the formative question we should ask. Because even the NNPC now has announced they're going to get their refinery up and running. They said by August we're going to be getting fuel out of the refinery. We're not seeing anything. So who are these people that their interests are so much and bigger than that of Nigeria? I think those are the questions we should ask.
But most importantly, if the president is the Minister of Petroleum Resources, right, shouldn't he have a more stronger grip on what exactly is happening within that oil sector? Because we saw the former president, Muhammadu Buhari, doing his best, quote unquote, and we saw how that played out. We cannot have the same thing happen again. I mean, he did have two different...
Apparently, if we are seeing results as the president being the Minister of Petroleum, we will not be saying all the things we are saying. That's just it. That's just it. That's just it. So I just needed to touch on that. Well, that's the sad reality of our lives today. Bless you, Allah.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Rufai. Have yourself a wonderful day.
I have a good one.
All right, you have the opportunity to call me up and let me know what you think about any of our headlines. 0808 312 8618 is the number to call to be a part of our conversation. 0808 312 8618. Also, we're live on YouTube, Voice of the People, Abuja. Join us on YouTube at Voice of the People, Abuja. Meanwhile, former President Obasanjo says most of the people in government should be behind bars. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about that.
And until we take care of ourselves, it doesn't matter. We may have one term of 4 years, one term of 6 years, one term of 7 years. If it's the same people and the same mentality, and the same way we do things, it won't change. So Our beginning is ourselves, to my mind. Yes, system, yes, democracy. We have to rethink democracy. We have to rethink the form of government. What is the character of the people that are in government? With all due respect, most of them should be behind the bar. And that is the truth. Most of them should be behind the bar. Some should even be in the gallows. It's ourselves.
This statement brought a lot of criticisms towards the former president, talking about the fact that every former president thinks they are saints. Some of them brought us to where we are as a country. Someone else said, including you and your vice, you guys are not exempted from this dragging. Some people have also said that Obasanjo will keep telling the truth and they're 100% behind him and all that. Well, there's been a lot of mixed reactions. Should he be speaking? He's an elder statesman. Of course, he should have a thing or two to say about what is going on in the country. He's run the country for a while. It took Nigeria from a situation. Remember the parade debt? Well, he cleared that and even left so much more for his predecessor to work with in the public purse. So a lot of people have been saying that should someone like him, who had the opportunity to make some very definite changes in terms of our democracy, have a lot to say about the country at the moment, seeing that he also played a part or two in bringing us to where we are. And a lot of Nigerians have also said, well, you can't take it away from him. If he did bad, whether bad or good, it doesn't mean that he can make a U-turn and see what is bad and call it what it is. Well, we'll watch and see how all this back and forth goes on. I'll watch and see how it plays out. Meanwhile, a conversation was had about the 2024 Olympics. We'll be having it with Nonso in just a moment. Very, very interesting what is playing out. As you know, Nigeria came out of that particular competition with no medal. Not one, zilch, nada, not one of any color, whether black, brown, blue, silver, gold, whatever color. We didn't come out with any of that, and because of that, well, that has sparked a lot of anger in Nigerians, as there were a lot of talents in that place and they could have done better even with a little more coaching. Well, we'll have more conversation about that in just a moment. Meanwhile, we're having a conversation with Mr. Larry in just a bit, talking about what the president has said so far in terms of the oil sector. Well, there's a lot to be said about that. I will play the audio for you to listen. And then when I come back at the 8 o'clock hour, we'll be discussing it with Larry Oguego. Take a listen.
You talk about Nerima. I went when I was president. I went and called Shell. I said, Shell, look, come and help us. Run the refinery. Take part. They said no. You can take 10%, you can take 20%, but come on. They say no. I say, okay, all right. If you don't want to take equity, come and run it for me. They say no. So they left. I then called their head one-on-one. I said, look, sit down with me. I think Port Harcourt is 60,000 barrels a day. And then, yeah, and I think that's Port Harcourt. Kaduna is maybe 100,000 barrels a day. We made substantial part of our profit in the upstream. So, the refinery, if you run it well, you will break even and make a small profit. But if you don't run it well, you will run it at a loss. 3, they say our refinery, the way we have managed it, the way we have serviced it, is not the way that refinery should be serviced. So they don't want to get involved in that. 4, they said to me, the corruption along the refinery, they did not want to get involved in that. When they told me all that, I was completely numb. And then some Nigerians got together. They paid 750 million. I said, God has sent this one. My successor said, return it back. I ran to him and I said, look, you know this is not right. He said, well, NNPC said they can do it. I said, NNPC cannot do it. NNPC, I think you are investigating $1.5 billion that NNPC has spent on refineries since then, and the refineries will not work. But I told my successor that the refineries, from what I have heard and know, will not work. And when you want to sell it, you will not get anybody to buy it for $200 million as scrap. And that is the situation behind. So why do we do this type of thing to ourselves? NNPC knew that they cannot, but they knew that they can eat and carry on with the corruption that was going on in NNPC. And when people were there they put pressure. In a civilized society, those people should be in jail. Why do we do this to ourselves? And that is NNPC. Take anything. National Shipping Line, the story of it. Nigeria Airways, the story of it. Why do we do this to ourselves?
Well, that was the conversation had by former President Olusegun Obasanjo. We'll be torchlighting that in a moment. Juxtaposing that with Dangote's crude wars at the moment between NNP, the Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, and the NMDPRA and the management of the facility. It's accused these entities of either directly sabotaging the refinery or attempting to do so by limiting its access to the required crude supply and penetration of the local markets. Dangote has said that that particular refinery was created to refine Nigerian products and give it to Nigerians. Why then does it have to get the crude from outside the country and then refine it here to Nigerians, especially due to the fact that we have it here? Anyway, we'll be having that conversation with Mr. Larry in just a bit. Make sure you stick around. My name is Gesiri, and this